and I ended up going to the tail end. And then he gets in there and probably took all the guys I would have.
Oh, he probably would.
Yeah, so,
all right, so I've
been a little hard on him. He deserves it.
You're watching over here.
Yeah.
You're on Industrial. You're on our page. I'm watching on the Cigar Newbies page. Rodney Smith is in. What's up, dog? If you want to share this, go to our Facebook page and share it. This is super important. Yes.
Ty did rig the draft.
You know, this is super important. We're going live in 1:15. So we're actually monitoring both.
Yeah, both of them. And I mean, half the internet is
Let's go. Start sharing. If you're on Industrial Cigar Co. Facebook, start sharing it. Steve, what up, dog?
Andre says
new humidor.
Andre says he needs to come check us guys out. You have no idea what you'll experience when you get here.
Actually, a phenomenal cigar experience. If Rodney Smith is here,
then it's a phenomenal people experience when Rodney's here.
We got ourselves. This is a good looking set today, by the way, ladies and gentlemen.
You gonna Cuban cut that thing, or what do you got?
You gonna keep the volume on that the whole time, or just?
Yeah, I think I should keep the volume on it.
I like this. I like where we're going. So, actually, we'll wait.
I'm in Wiley. We'll wait. He's in Wiley.
Oh,
we have guys that come in from Sulphur Springs once a week, and we have the one guy comes in 5 days a week from the west side of Fort Worth.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Jared Jordan is here. Andy's here. Gary Flynn, we love you as well.
Gary loves
5 seconds. 4 seconds.
Sydney's in.
3.
Here we are. It's Tuesday.
And it's Cigars 101. That's how we got to get into this one.
That's how we're doing it?
Yeah. It's Cigar Newbie Bash.
Why don't we do like this? It's Cigars
101.
Boom, right there.
I think
we just made that up.
Oh, that's a brand. You can't even tell.
You can't even tell.
So
it's like we practiced that shit.
I'll tell you what, Rodney Smith, thank you so much. You're the best. Glenn, you are also incredible. You're the best.
Jared Jordan loves us.
I love him.
I said as a grown man, about a grown man. It did sound a little bit more affectionate than you normally are.
Exactly. Okay, so we're talking humidification. We're talking about what's right, what's wrong, what's the best way, what's the worst way. But importantly, please stop messing with the plastic by the mic. Also, please send in your questions because we want this to be interactive. Nathan, you were saying you just got a new humidor for Christmas. You're going through the seasoning. You have some questions. Fire questions away.
That's why we're doing this show.
So how do we start it is the question.
Well, start number 1. Fire. Start number 2. What are we smoking?
Okay, this is, for those of you who have smoked the Casa Chirent 1880 Lancero that we did exclusively for us, it utilizes a Mexican San Andreas wrapper. You may have remembered this. It's been out for about a year, meaning it's been out of stock for about a year. Well, we're taking a little bit of a change. Ipso facto, this is going to be house stick number 2.
Yes.
Ipso facto, this is similar to those of you who have smoked the whiskey straw.
Yes.
Just put a little bit more chocolatey wrapper on it. You've got we haven't figured out the name yet.
Now, the other thing too, for those of you parents that are out there that have a 15-year-old, you'll know that you probably don't like them.
Mm-hmm.
But this cigar has a 15-year-old wrapper and 15-year-old filler. The binder's 10. We still like 10-year-olds. But this is a 15-year-old that you will actually like. This cigar, the performance on this cigar is outstanding. We've sold a lot of them for not having them for sale yet.
I've noticed that bundle has depleted. We will probably put these out. And also, importantly, I think these will go out, and then our next run we do will have our branding on them because we already have them in the humidor. Let's just start selling these things. They're awesome. Smoke it. Let's be real. It's awesome.
What's up, Tim? Burnett's got a $1,000 gift card. What should he buy? So that's just he basically won the lottery by winning our fantasy, and he's got over
$1,000. That's what you can
over
win?
$1,000. Yeah.
Oh, I would have taken that way more serious if I would have known I had $1,000 to hear. Okay, Nathan finally killed the Frankie sticks. I'm hoping they were good. Frank Tomaszewski is in. Sean Ratz is in. Terry Mouton is in. What's up, homies?
We're going to say hi to everybody. So if you have questions, please throw them in here. Tonight's topic, thinking that maybe Santa brought some people some humidors. We're going to talk humidity and keeping your cigars humid.
Let's start with the most popular type. And if somebody is watching right now that just picked up a humidor for Christmas, it's important to go through a pretty simple process. We'll explain why you want to keep your cigars humidified as we go through. But importantly, the most popular type of humidor you're going to see is a Spanish cedar lined humidor. And as I block my face, if you want to explain this a little bit.
So basically right now what you've got is you have a cigar that's got a lot, or a humidor that has a lot of cedar. In this particular case, it looks like this is 1 inch.
I can't see
hold on just a second. It's got 1 inch cedar. It's got cedar trays inside of it with a divider. It's got a sensor, a place up here where you can put your hygrometer and the humidifiers that come with it. Not a huge fan.
Honestly, take those hygrometers and take the humidification unit that came with it, throw them in the trash.
See how far you can throw them. Throw them in your neighbor's backyard. They'll think it's like alien shit or something.
Absolutely. So do that. But then after you throw that into your neighbor's backyard, what you're going to want to do is either bring it here so we can actually condition it for you, or get, importantly, and there is no substitute, distilled water.
Yes.
And
you have to use distilled water.
Take distilled water and dampen a rag with it, and then you'll want to hit every little crevice and every bit of that cedar, and not making it so there's any puddles, but hitting all of that. Now, what is that going to do is a question.
Well, basically what that's going to do is it's going to seal basically cedar will absorb and then hold that humidity for quite a while. Longer than if you just stuck in some other woods. The other thing is it's very, very aromatic wood. So you're also going to pick up a lot of the natural smell, the natural aroma of cedar. Some of the things to look for, and one of the things that Brandon noticed, if you can see this when he drops this lid, this is a good sign. It's got a nice tight seal.
And what you're looking for is this last little bit is almost feels like it's vacuumed. It hits and then it's got a slow close, showing that it has a nice solid seal. Importantly, because somebody came in about the seasoning their humidor, if you put too much water in it, or if you over dampen it, all of these hinges are going to swell quite a bit, and you may have a difficulty actually closing that.
Yeah. So at that point, leave it open, let it sit for a day or so, and just let everything start to dry back up a little bit. But the ultimate goal, first and foremost, is to season the humidor. You're going to hear the term seasoning of the humidor. It is something that, as long as you're keeping humidity packs inside of that humidor and you monitor the humidity on the cigars, then this is going to work just fine. Should we talk a little bit about maybe the primary benefit of the acrylic?
Yeah, and do you want to talk through that?
Yeah. So
now let's just actually, while we're here and on this, after you go through that step of throwing all of the hygrometer and all of that stuff to your neighbor's backyard, then you're going to take distilled water and distilled water only and get all of the creases, if it has cedar,
everything
all locked up.
Yep.
Then you'll actually want to keep that thing closed with a couple Bovida packs in there for about 48 hours.
Yeah,
2 hours.
Yeah, at least 48 hours. And just let that thing absorb that direct impact of the water that you put on it. Let it absorb that, and then let that humidor acclimate to the humidity of choice.
And if you put cigars in there, that humidity right away is going to be about 84 or so
it'll get up there.
And that's a dangerous place for your cigars to be. That's where you start introducing mold. That's where you start introducing a lot of things you don't want on your cigars themselves. And with that, you don't want to, during seasoning, put the cigars in there. That will either overswell them. Like I mentioned, there could be some mold that kicks in.
Yeah.
But let this thing season for 2 to 3 days before you put anything in there.
So at that point, we recommend the Bovida packs. Bovida is actually a great company out of Minneapolis.
And while we're speaking of sponsors,
Tonight's show is brought to you by Busch.
Bavarian.
If you want beer, how's the rest of it go?
If you're going to drink a beer, why not make it
Busch Bavarian. So, yeah, it'll be great if we can actually get Busch Bavarian to sponsor.
I'm just drinking Modelo because I'm smoking a Mexican cigar. Okay, now we got the sponsorship out of the way.
Yes, so the Boveda packs are packs that are actually two-way humidification. Two-way humidification simply means, if in this case, this is a 75% humidity pack.
Yep.
It's got some water. It's kind of a watery pillow deal going on. Once you take it out of this, it becomes activated. You can literally set it on top of the cigars, not a problem. But the key with this is not only is it going to add and get you to 75%, but if there's too much humidity in the box, things get hot, whatever, there's sunlight coming in that room, whatever the case may be, then this will actually pull humidity out of the box and get it down to that 75. So if you want to send these things off into the crazy farm, you throw a 75 in and a 72 in, and the two fight with each other because one's trying to bump it up and the other one's trying to bump it down.
And don't do that.
Don't do that.
And because they have a 65 pack, 69% pack, they have a 72 and a 75. And even an 84 for seasoning, but if you put different sides, you're going to notice your cigars nearest the low percentage are going to be bone dry because it's pulling everything out of the air and your cigar, and everything over here is going to be a little bit too soppy and is going to run into performance issues.
Right.
I don't know if you want to talk through what some of those performance issues are.
Well, we'll talk about the various types of humidors because a lot of people got a lot of different humidors.
Okay, so the first go and the most popular style is the Cedar Humidor.
Cedar Humidor, obviously, the thicker the cedar, the
Tony Galantis.
that. What's that?
Tony Galantis.
Nice. Welcome in, Tony. Of course, JP's in. He's got his balls in here, so that's good. But cedar is the most popular. There are a lot of inexpensive cedar humidors. Some of them have glass tops. Some of them are very, very thin cedar. Those, a lot of times, you kind of get what you pay for. Mm-hmm. Just remember, if you throw, if that I think is a 100 count, maybe a little bit larger, you throw 100 cigars in there and you spent $10 a cigar, you got $1,000 worth of cigars in there. So when people talk about trying to rehydrate these things to save $4, you're protecting a large investment. Just buy a new pack. It's $4.
And so when he's saying buy a new pack, what's important is this has a little bit of pillow to it. Once this dries up and looks like a popcorn bag before you throw it in the microwave,
that's a good way to put
it. It crunches up. It's very simple because you can throw away the hygrometer because the pack is going to tell you what it needs.
Yeah.
And if you are going through these packs at a couple packs per month, you may have a leak issue. If you can get 3 to 6 months off of it, fantastic. But when that dries out, pull this thing out, put a new one in. Don't go rehydrating a pack. You're going to take an hour to do. Just ruin all the cigars.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But in a case like this, I think by a rule of thumb, I think if you put a Boveda pack in there for every, say, 40 sticks, I think they recommend more. Boveda does, but they also want to sell more. But in a pack like that, I'd probably throw 2 in the top and 2 in the bottom because it has a tray in it. Probably throw 2 in the top and 2 in the bottom, and you'll be fine. Mm-hmm. But just monitor that. And as Brandon said, if this thing dries out in 30 days, then we may have to re-season the humidor itself. Get that thing; it might have absorbed everything, and the cedar may have been extremely dry. So it may have absorbed that. So let's monitor that. If you're getting 2 months out of that on a cedar humidor, you're going to be in pretty good shape.
Yep.
We actually followed the lead of Boveda. We figure these guys are experts in the area of humidification, and they actually have acrylic humidors.
So let's say somebody really loved you for Christmas and bought you an acrylic humidor. What is the seasoning process, and what do you need to do for this?
With this, to season this, in fact, I can do it right now. We lift the tray out, we throw the pack in, we set this back down, we put the lid back on, and hold on, take a cigar first. and then put the lid back on, and that's it.
Yep.
So the other benefit to this, and there's going to be something I'm going to point out here, in the case of an acrylic, the only thing that's getting humidity is the cigar. In the case of cedar, it's in the case of a cedar humidor, the cedar wants humidity and the cigars want humidity. Now, there was one guy that had just got a new humidor.
Right.
I don't know if he was able to join fast enough, but I just saw him on another group.
Yep.
If that humidor starts to dry out, those packs have dried out. If you have more surface area of cedar than you have surface area of cigars, the cedar is going to look for humidity wherever it can get it.
Yep.
And it will win the battle when it comes to pulling humidity out of your cigars. It will see that kind of as its source. And at some point, you're going to dry out the cigars and the humidor itself. Then at that point, we have to not only re-season the cedar, but we're going to have to kind of give those cigars a little bit of a jolt via whether it's a Tupperware or Ziploc bag, throwing a 75 inside there and trying to give those things a little bit of a jump start.
Really, what you're saying is it's a pain in the ass if you got to jump start it. Just stay up on top of it. I see Oliver, you're coming in to pick up your humidor. I saw it today. You're going to be very stoked the way that your name turned out on that.
Excellent.
Okay, so let's talk about, can you guys explain proper humidity level and temperature? Here's what's cool about cigars themselves is these are not a perfect science in making them, and there is really no, I mean, there is a perfect number that you can be at, but really, if you're anywhere from 65% humidity to 75% humidity, you're in good shape. Temperature-wise, if it echoes, you're in good shape.
Yeah. There's a term in cigars that some people know that if they see a cigar that has plume is when the sugars have come to the surface of the wrapper and it turns white. Kind of looks like a little bit of powdered sugar has made its way onto the cigar itself. Plume really indicates that the cigar was kept at the same temperature and humidity for an extended period of time.
Right.
So it could have sat at 67, 67. It could have sat at 72, 72. But those two factors will actually start making that cigar really happy. Ideally, you want to keep the cigar out of direct sunlight, which will contribute to hammering this. Also, think about where is this at as it relates to the heater vents in your house. And also remember, in the winter, air becomes very, very dry.
Yep.
So depending on the part of the country that you're in, it's one thing that it's cold. It's another thing that it lacks humidity. So that's going to be another reason you're going to want to monitor that very, very closely.
Without a doubt. Now, Andre actually had a question. Is there any benefit to Coolidors? Yes is a short answer to that. With a small disclaimer, which is many Chinese manufacturers are hopping into the Amazon Coolidor, Winador, or Herfador game, and you really have to be careful because where many of them used to have these units, and some still have the electric humidification units, what you'll see is they're basically just repurposing a wine fridge,
yeah.
And
so it's hard to
that
get it
for
to
cigars.
70. It's hard to get it to 70 degrees.
They usually have a really nice seal to them generally, but you have to really start looking at, is the unit inside something that can be replaceable? Because once you get to a unit that size, you need to start thinking about some electric humidification units. And I'll tell you from experience, they're a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Because they're always pulling distilled water. You got to stay on top of it. Once the beads dry up, you got to pull it out. It becomes this deal, and it's fine because it's part of the process, and but it's easy to get into the game of chasing humidity, chasing perfection, and instead of put the packs in, let the cigars just know they're good.
Right. And the other thing as it relates to a cedar humidor, the objective is to try to keep that humidor half full. If you keep it half full, then you have you're minimizing the amount of surface space of cedar, surface exposure of cedar that you have, and you're increasing the amount of cigar surface area that you have, so that you're going to actually get a nice balance of humidity feeding the cigars versus feeding the others. if you put 6 cigars inside of a large cedar humidor, the amount of cedar that's exposed, it's going to start starving for humidification. And here's a perfect case in point. I have in my wall humidor, I have 4 of the electronic humidors. During the summer, I could go probably, and during the fall time, I could go a month to even a little bit longer, just filling those tanks with distilled water. I now have to fill those every 4 days because the air has dried out so much. So that's just one of the things to just keep in mind. And we're not saying, start a fire with that and come get one of these. You can if you want, but we just want to point out that Boveda actually does the acrylics. The biggest issue that we had with Boveda is that they have a domed top. The top goes like this, and a lot of people want to be able to stack these. So we actually had our own units manufactured at the same facility that Boveda does. So these are our humidors. They're a nice airtight seal, little magnetically locked, and we have guys that have 8 of them stacked on top of each other, and they work fantastic.
Let's make a pivot away from humidors,
okay,
and talk about the cigar, and talk about how do you know if your cigar is receiving the right amount of humidity? Is there something? Let's say, for instance, if you're smoking a cigar like the one you're smoking now, would you say that is a cigar that has good humidity? Is that one, and why is the question, one way or the other?
Well, the one of the things that I noticed with this cigar, particularly this particular cigar, is called a Lancero. That's a very long, smaller ring gauge cigar, but it is also one of the, if not the most difficult cigar to roll, because they've got to try to get a lot of large leaves inside of this small package without the cigar becoming extremely tight. But one of the indicators that I look at when I'm smoking a cigar, and I want to just kind of identify and feel where I'm at, one of the first things that I'll do is I'll take the cigar and just kind of squeeze it a little bit. I notice you do this too, and listen to see if you get any kind of cracking.
And that's really in thanks to the Hogans, the owners of Crux Cigars, because that's one thing that they taught me was you can hear the leaves move on a humid cigar, you can hear the leaves crack on a dry cigar. You can really start hearing that crunch to it.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is I've noticed that when a cigar gets a lot of humidity, when maybe that cigar is at 75%, or the conditions in the area have made that cigar kind of oversaturated, so to speak, that the leaves themselves will expand. I noticed that when we age cigars in the bourbon barrels, they expand dramatically. It's almost a living organism. It's breathing. It's breathing in, it's breathing out. So in this case, if you get one that's too wet, I noticed that a lot of times, particularly on this size cigar, the cigar is oftentimes very tight. Lanceros sometimes are tight in and of themselves.
And not only that, I think it gives a perception of being tight. If you have a cigar that's over humidified, for instance, the one that I pulled out of the bag, the Chasero, before we actually cracked those, what I noticed was it gives you 2 flavors. One, it gives you almost a sour flavor, but it also gives you the sensation that it's too tight because it's not actually combusting at a natural, at the temperature it needs to. It keeps itself kind of cool and it continuously goes out. Then you have to relight it and then you're kind of chasing it all the way through. And you'll feel that soppiness. Now there are some cigars that have oily wrappers that may look wet.
Right.
But if you get it and it just continuously goes out, it's...
But like a typical rule of thumb, one of the things that Cuba is really good at is rolling extremely tight cigars. So the basic rule of thumb, if you have Cuban cigars, is to run those at about 65% humidity, because really in the end what we want to do is try to shrink that leaf down while it's still holding its shape to kind of create a little bit more opportunity for airflow. So Cubans in general, or if you get a cigar that, like Brandon's saying, it comes in, and we notice it a lot around the holidays. We get these 5-packs that the back side of the 5-pack is like a Boveda. So that thing is it's laying against that humidity for you don't know how long. So a lot of times you'll notice a cigar. If you want to see a cigar that's maybe an indicator that your humidor is too wet, is one side will burn much faster than the other side of the cigar.
Exactly.
Because it's just the top portion may have been exposed and it's just not getting the humidity, or maybe it is exposed, it's getting so much humidity that the bottom of the cigar is not, and it will take off running.
And that's called canoeing, when it runs down the side. It's not, even in good humidity, sometimes it will run. You just have to catch it up, and that's fine. Chuck Clack, our acrylics, they run for about $200 non-member price, and we'll even engrave.
We'll laser engrave.
And then Frank,
some cool stuff on there for you.
On this side, will it benefit you to keep the acrylic humidor covered when it's stored away, i.e. keep the sun off of it? Always. Always want to keep that sun off of it. If you keep a towel over it, that's even better.
Because you think about it, the heat is going to, in any small container like this, the heat will magnify a little bit, and then you have a piece of something that's wet in there that's going to create more humidity. Then the thing's fighting to pull that humidity back out. It's going to do a good job of stabilizing it, but the same rule of thumb with that. And on the flip side, during the summer, if you have it in a den or something that you got an air conditioner that's blowing down on it, that could also be changing the temperature. It could dry the unit out.
Yep.
And again, a lot of this, because we have so many people from different parts of the United States. I know that we're from Nebraska, and there was a point in time when we got our new house that our cabinets in the wintertime would actually start to physically crack because the air was so tight. So that's something to really focus on. But
so you talk about some of the performance of the cigar, some of the issues that lets you know your humidity is off. So those are, as you're continuously smoking cigars, I recommend don't take too much to really just, how many do they hold? Depending on the size of cigars, anywhere from 75 to
70.
You're more of a Lancero guy.
If you did Lanceros, we just did 100 in one Lancero, or 100 Lanceros in one of these.
So what I recommend is don't become infatuated with the humidity levels in your humidor and making sure they're exactly, because I see a lot of guys getting into that. Let the cigars tell you what's happening, and if there's an issue. So make sure your Boveda packs are good. But one of the things you talked about was canoeing, where that cigar is going to run on you down the side.
Yep.
What are some other issues that might tell somebody that there's something wrong with humidification?
Obviously draw. If it gets really wet, there's a really tough draw. A lot of times, what that will do is cause you to pull harder. And if any of you guys, you can raise your hands if this has happened to you. You pull harder on a wet cigar, and the end of the ember on the cigar actually becomes charcoal, which then becomes impossible to draw through. That is typically a sign that the cigar itself is a little wet, and as you're pulling and pulling and pulling harder and harder and harder, that ember actually charcoals. And just as a tip of the day right now, if you do get a cigar that the ember turns into charcoal, which is literally what it does, because when you tap it on the ashtray, you hear it go tink, tink, tink. Tap it really good about 3 or 4 times and knock that whole ember off. Then once that ember's off, you'll see it'll be very dark, right? Then just take it at that point and push out and then go ahead and relight the cigar. So it should at that point bounce right back and you'll be okay. But once that ember starts to charcoal, once it starts, there's no stopping it. So you're better off just letting it cool down a little bit, knock that ember off, and get on down the road with it.
And another thing that's going to tell you is pay attention to the ash as well. If you look at the ash that we have now, it's very intact. That's going to tell you a couple things. One, the production and the quality of the roll is there. But 2, from time to time, you'll see the actual ash open up.
Right.
Almost
flowers
and flares open.
Yeah.
And if it's opening up and you have multiples that are opening up, that's going to tell you that your humidity is off as well. So check the packs and see where you're at. Generally, that's going to mean it's dry and it's basically cracking when it opens and when that wrapper leaf is there. The good news is if it is opening that way, it's generally just your wrapper that is becoming dry itself. So you're going to be able to really save those cigars and make sure that you don't lose them.
So John Giersick, We love John.
Love that guy.
John says he had an old humidor that had cigar smell of ammonia. Is that over humidified? So like if we're a doctor diagnosing things, what that would tell me is that chances are at some point in time, and that ammonia smell may stay even after the cigars have been smoked. But at some point in time, you may have had some cigars in that humidor that had very young tobacco.
Yeah, weren't ready.
And if that tobacco was young, at that point it's kicking off ammonia, and because the cigar is breathing, the cedar in the humidor is breathing, and it could pull that in. Well, if you pull that ammonia in and then let's say reseason it, you've kind of trapped that ammonia in there, and odds are if you're at 70 and 70 or whatever the case may be, that aroma is still going to be in there. It will permeate the cigar itself. Mm-hmm. So at that point, some of the ways to combat it is some cigar boxes come with a single sheet of cedar. If that's the case, we keep a lot of those. A lot of times we break them up because people like to light their cigar with cedar. But if that's the case, throw 2 or 3 of those inside that pack and see if we can incorporate and introduce more aromatic cedar to that humidor, and see if it can start pulling some of that in.
Yeah, that's really solid. I like that idea. For those of you who are joining us, just want to say thank you. This is Cigar Newbies and Industrial Cigar Company Tuesday Cigars 101. We're talking through humidification, obviously, as you can read in the title. If you have questions on anything, please feel free to send it in to us. We're talking through because so many people get humidors for Christmas. Uh-huh. Some of the best ways, and we talked about the cedar, talked about acrylic. Maybe we make a turn to the Cigar, which is basically the same thing. Many guys start off by using the Cigar travel cases as their own first humidor. And what are some things they need to know about that?
Yeah, I'm going to pull that up, but real quick, I'm going to answer Chuck's question. Yes, when somebody gets a humidor, we will make sure that it's loaded with Boveda packs to make sure that you're all set, because we want to make sure you're maximizing the performance on that. But this is the Cigar cases. These are the plastic cases. These are foam pads to protect your cigars. I think this one is the 15 count. So you'd lay 5 cigars, set down this pack. Usually, now there's full-size Boveda packs, and then there's smaller, kind of 2-inch by 2-inch Boveda packs. In a travel humidor like this little thing of whatever they call it is not going to work. Just throw a single Boveda pack in there, the small one.
Tim Flores. Pafangu Tim Flores.
What did he say?
My hair and peach fuzz beard are on fire. I do it for you, Tim Flores. Let me keep this going.
Nice.
I'm keeping this going.
So this will give you an opportunity to put 15 cigars inside there. One of the other tips that I'll give you, if you are going to use one of these travel humidors, a lot of guys I see them, they'll open it up and they'll have a couple of cigars. They'll have their lighter and their cutter all on the same same bay. What I would do is put the cigars underneath, and then if you're at the top, just put your cutter and lighter on there, because as these things bounce around, they're just going to start ripping your cigars apart. So just stay away from that. This particular cigar, they're airtight, they're waterproof. This one holds 15. They have a 5, a 10, a 15, a 40, a 60, and I think an 80.
Yeah, something.
When you get to those bigger ones, if you travel a lot, it's almost, because if you're on an airplane, air pressure changes. They literally are virtually impossible to open. So when you get to the larger ones, they actually have a screw air release on it, so that you can unscrew it and bring some air in that so that it will actually open it. It's that airtight.
But in all honesty, if you're going on vacation and bringing 80 cigars, just go to the shop in that area and support the shop, and just bring, like how we did it in Florida. Mm-hmm. Just go bring 20 cigars, however many cigars. But then if you have to bring 80 cigars with you, I've taken a full 80 with me when we go on a cruise. So if we're gone for a week, I'm not going to buy the dried out stuff that they have sitting in the ship humidor. I'm not going to fall for the banana. I'm not going to fall for the banana in the tailpipe with the glass-topped Cuban cigars that you can get. But that is,
that's the larger ones work fantastic for that.
It's really cool because from time to time we'll have some extras of these, and it's a great way, honestly, from a gifting, and as the people who are watching now, as you're in cigars and you want to get your friends maybe involved, as you introduce them, you'll notice they start, maybe they have a box or they have Tupperware, they have something, but they'll buy cigars, but they don't want to go and commit and admit they have a problem. But this is a really cool way for $20, $30, $40 to have something that not only will travel, but it is okay for longer term storage.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about it. We have some guys that are using large coolers, large Igloo coolers to age cigars, and those are fine. As long as it's airtight and it's holding temperature, you're in a good place. So so I would definitely, I have these. I have a 5 counter. No, I have a 10 counter that I throw in my golf bag. So when I play golf, I just throw it in the slot on the golf cart, and off you go. So they work fantastic.
And they work, in all honesty, because we have the Brassard 5-finger cigar holder, but I'm really only going to use that if I'm going to someone's house. You bring that, and it's a bit more of an experience where you're going to bring nice cigars, you're going to go set up, you're going to basically have an offering for the house.
Right.
But if you're just going golfing, you're going shooting, you're going whatever you want to do, I just grab those things and let it rock and roll. And it's inexpensive enough where if somebody really loves it, then take a couple cigars out, give them that pack, and just watch how they start to geek out about cigars. What problem?
Marty up there. No, you don't have a problem. Hand me the Butler. So, for those of you that are the kind of that like to monitor things, you watch all your Ring doorbell videos, you're kind of really into monitoring stuff. Boveda does make the Boveda Butler. This one doesn't have it in the box. Oh no, it slid down inside there. I was going to say, so this one, somebody got the 5-finger discount on, but it looks like it's in here. So this little device here, it has a little tab, you pull that, and it is a Wi-Fi humidity and temperature sensor. So this, you literally just drop it inside of the box, you download their app, and you can actually set warnings in there so that if it goes above 72 or below 65, whatever the case may be, it'll actually show you a graph of what your humidity is by the hour. And what's really interesting is, let's say you have 15 cigars in your humidor and it's sitting at a perfect 70% humidity, it's 70 degrees, everything is fantastic. And then you come in here, you pick up 20 more cigars and you throw them inside there. Watch it for the next few hours. Because it just throws that humidor into turmoil. It's like, what the hell's going on? There's humidity in here, there's not enough humidity, and the Boveda packs are working to stabilize things. So it is interesting to see what impact it has just leaving it open. Lift it, take your cigar out, put it back on. You want to make sure that you're not just flipping it open and leaving it open. We'll walk through the shop, and even guys with their lockers, we'll go through and close their locker because they left it open.
Yeah.
But got to be doing that.
But in all honesty, when it comes to monitoring, you can really nerd out and pay attention to exactly a little bit because it's fun. But for me, especially this, I just have an acrylic at the house. I've got a couple Boveda packs in there. I know it's well taken care of. I put them in, and I just have them until I smoke something and it tastes a little weird.
This is a set it and forget it type of thing.
For months.
Now, we have, one of our members bought one of the first acrylics that we got in about probably 16 months ago now, Mark McClurkin. And I know that at 14 months, he lifted it out and his Boveda packs were like the day that he put them in. Over a year later. It's incredible. The other thing that I like about this, you can put 6 cigars in there, it's going to keep them humidified. Mm-hmm. You can put 30 cigars in there, it's going to keep them humidified. If you put 6 cigars in that, it's going to be a challenge to get those things right.
It will most certainly be a challenge. Make sure, so Nathan, I'm not sure which one you got for Christmas, but make sure you're paying attention if you did get cedar for what that is. But if you want to know, just from a taste perspective, how do you know we spoke about how to know if it's over humidified, where if it has some of this weird, if you get charcoaling, if you get this really sour taste, if it feels like you're not getting enough smoke, usually that's just because it could be a performance issue from a roll perspective. But if it's really soppy and oily and it has that extra taste to it, taste is going to tell you a lot.
Another thing is, does it feel spongy? If it's wet, that cigar will take on a real sponginess.
And if it's dry, not only will you hear the crack, but when you taste it, it will taste peppery. And these cigars, especially as you start stocking up, you'll realize and you'll remember what these cigars were that were in your humidor. If they start tasting peppery or bitter, that's a great indication that they're really under humidified. And if that's the case, then just as it's there, if you taste something that's peppery that usually hasn't been, just feel it, and it's going to tell you what it is. And then a quick check on the packs will tell you everything.
So Chris has said, and I don't know if this is a setup, but do you know anyone that does laser engraving on acrylic?
Who is that, Chris? Yeah,
we do.
We
have half of Brandon's garage is tied up with a commercial
Yeah,
laser. So when somebody buys our acrylic, the Bovida is $200. You can't stack them on top of each other. This one you can stack on top of it, and it includes laser engraving. So we'll do it on one location, and we've had some guys that have wanted all of the Dallas sports teams on there with their initials in the middle or whatever the case may be.
What's really cool, because the size of the laser is big, we can actually go what's called full bleed, which means we can go all the way to the edges. So you can do a center and it looks classy, nice and in the center. But if you wanted to have something that, if you had a design, we did one for Osaka that had their Jaguar head that ran all the way down. That's my favorite one we've done so far.
That was incredible.
We can go full bleed. We can do, now keep in mind, we're not able to do color variations or differences there. So keeping it kind of single color with your design is going to be important.
Yeah. But yeah, we do that. It's included when you buy the laser. Multiple locations may take a little bit more, cost a little bit more just because of setup. Typical turnaround time once you get the humidor to the house to get it lasered.
We had one that I had made an error on, so that's about, I think we're about a week on it. But usually once it gets to the house, it's 48 hours and back to the shop. So my apologies, Oliver. That's actually my fault.
Okay, so he's talking about Chris is talking about the Cigar Medic tool, and I'm thinking that's the humidity sensor that has the two prongs that you plug into the foot of the cigar. I've heard mixed things. I've heard some guys love it, but one guy was doing a deal with it. I was going to bring him in, but they stuck it in and it registered 70, and then it just dropped in real time down to like 58. Yeah, I just don't know. Is it only getting the humidity of the leaves that it's touching?
Well, it doesn't make sense, because at the end of the day, you want your areas to be at 70 to 75% or wherever your percentage you want it to be. But the cigars themselves have air inside of them.
Right.
So it's your cigar tobacco leaves are not going to be 75%. I mean, it's just, it can't all be 75 when you stick it in there. It's not an ecosystem or an eco chamber.
Yeah, and if you think about the gases that tobacco kicks off if it's young, you almost wonder, I mean, think about this. What's the temperature when they have tobacco stacked on a pilon and it's fermenting?
125 degrees.
So 125 degrees when tobacco hasn't completely fermented and it's kicking off those gases that's triggering this acceleration in heat. If you went out and grabbed a box of fill in the blanks and it was young tobacco, that cigar may be still going through the fermentation process, and it may be hotter than anything else that's in there because it's still micro fermenting. So that's one thing that you just have to kind of be cautious on. And I guess you could, if you stuck one of those Cigar Medics in and the thing went through the roof, then it'd be kind of interesting.
You know what's really interesting about this?
What's that?
Is I'm picking up oil on this because I just Cuban cut it.
Yeah.
But when I put my tongue on it, it's not like
weird?
a 9-volt. No, It's really weird. Which tells the age of the tobacco. Although it's heating up and that oil's coming in, I've never had that where you touch it, get the oil, but it's not aggressive.
I'll tell you, just as a side note for cigar newbies, this to me would be the greatest cigar to illustrate that a dark cigar doesn't mean strong.
Yep.
Because this cigar to me is a perfect medium with this just beautiful, sweet, dark chocolate note to it, but there's no heavy oils or anything that lays on there. But somebody that's a newbie would walk past this cigar every day thinking, oh shit, that thing's gonna kill me.
Yep.
I'm telling you, it is.
This, just to give you an idea, I'm drinking, it's actually Modelo, it's not a Bush Bavarian.
That's why they're not sponsoring us.
Well, so this is obviously a light Mexican beer. It pairs well with this cigar. It's light, it's easygoing beer, but this works very well.
Yeah, so he said that they work great. He just recommends changing to alkaline batteries. And then Chris just got the new OSOC hoodie, so he knows exactly what's going on with that OSOC raffle.
Oh yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah, so cool. So one of the other units that came in this year that's really hot, and this is just another example. It's kind of like the Brizard cases that we show. That's more of a fashion statement. It's really high-end leather. They have 5-pack and 3-pack leather pouches that are just, that's one that you get dressed up and you go out and you go to a friend's house and you pull that out of your pocket.
Yep.
And it's just badass. It's not a humidor. It's not a long life humidor. This is another one if you want to get some attention. This is by Vault-Tec, and Vault-Tec is known for gun safes. So this, if you knock on the metal, this was technically a gun safe before, but they created this humidor insert that has a digital humidification tracking system that also has an app that will let you know. It'll actually alert you via beeping. It has the numeric keypad, security pad to get inside this unit, and it will store your cigars inside of it. You throw a Boveda pack inside here, you put all your accessories, everything's nice and safe. So if you're gonna do a cigar function, load it up with cigars. If you're gonna go someplace where you need to carry, we have a gun foam pad insert that you actually cut out the slots to set your firearm down inside there, and now you've got your gun safe as well. This thing is really, really cool.
I don't know how it looks on camera. I mean, obviously it probably presents pretty decently on camera, but when you hold it, the build quality on this is...
It's incredible.
It's really sensational. I mean, you can tell the difference in the seal, the way they use. I mean, the build quality on all of it. It uses, when you open it, you can smell that it's real leather that they use on the top. This is a no joke type of case. I think it sits at $350.
Yeah, we were able to buy a slug of these things for a Black Friday deal. It's a $449 case. I think we're at like $369. Our members get it for like $315.
It's very nice.
That is a really cool case. Now that price is just while the remaining ones that I have at that price, and then it goes back up when I start buying them again. But really cool case. And just a side note, if you are into firearms and things like that, we can get any Vault-Tec safe, and they have some amazing safes. We had one that was like a 6-foot tall safe that is all connected to your Wi-Fi system in your house, and it tells you if somebody's trying to break into it, all kinds of stuff. So we've got access to all the Vault-Tec stuff. So if you ever want to do it, we can literally just have it drop shipped to your house. So it's no big deal.
Yeah, that's next level. So when it comes to overall the humidity and monitoring your humidity, depending on the type of humidor is going to determine the type of humidity in the process. Obviously, there's a little bit more to get that conditioned and set up and ready to go. Acrylic is the easiest end-all be-all performance-wise, and then getting into the travel cases, really it just comes down to take care of your cigars and they'll...
Yeah, and I think we could talk a little bit about bringing back cigars. So we had some guys in recently that found that they had left a box of cigars in their trunk, and he didn't want to admit how long they had been in there, but obviously they had been in there long enough that he asked the question, is there a way to bring them back? The best thing to do is either use Tupperware, Ziploc bag will work, but get the cigars out of the box, put them inside there. you may get an 85% boveda pack and throw them inside there and just kind of shock those things. Get a jolt of humidity into those cigars. Let that sit in there for a few days. Pull that out. Then stair step down. Throw a 75 in there. Let it sit in there for a few days. Pull it out. Get it down to a 72. And then let it get to 72. Rotating the cigars. Every time you throw a boveda pack, every few days, rotate those cigars. Turn the cigars. Mm-hmm. And that's also a good practice to do in a cedar humidor. I haven't really found the need to do it in the acrylics, but as you get in there, make sure you roll the cigars. Now, one of the things that oftentimes comes up is, what about, I was starting to read what Chuck said and I completely lost my train of thought, but, I don't know. I'll remember it in 1 second. So go ahead.
Well, I was trying to remember what you said, but I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, Chuck brought up a good fact. That cigar will hold a Toro, so if you're a Churchill smoker, things like that, it's not going to be the main thing. And if you're smoking much larger cigars like a Churchill, Lancero, they won't fit inside that case.
Yep. That is.
So you just kind of have to think of. They'll take a Toro, they'll take a Gordo for the most part. Anything that's kind of under that 6-inch.
Yep.
It'll accommodate that without any problem at all. But I wish I could remember what I was going to say because it was.
I bet it was
stellar.
I bet it was good.
Stellar. But anyway, we were talking about bringing your cigars back.
Oh, yes. So there was one piece is how do I know when a cigar has gone too far? That's very simple. If it's cracked and it's cracked and flaky, they're toast.
Yeah.
They're toast. You won't get them back. But if it's before it started to crack on the wrapper, do your best to get them through.
Yeah.
And you were talking about stair step those down, from an 84 to zap at 75, 72. Work your way down into that.
Yeah, just work it down. and like I said, just rotate the cigars. Oh, here's the stellar part. Is cello or no cello when you put them in your humidor?
Whatever you want to do.
Okay, so cellophane is the cellophane that's on cigars. It is porous, so it is going to accommodate and it's going to allow that humidity to come in. If you're a person that is open the lid and start kind of going through this and, this is the one I want to smoke, leave them in the cello because the cello is really for protection only. If you're the guy that's going to put the cigars in there and you're going to this has 3 dividers, so let's say you have 3 dividers and I'm going to take this Padron 1964, I'm going to take this out and smoke it, then take it out of the cello. In most cases, Padron doesn't come with cello, but it's really about protecting the cigar. It doesn't take much to nick the foot of that cigar, and if that happens, then you may have a little bit of funkiness when you're trying to smoke that cigar.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but either way, it doesn't matter. Whatever you prefer. I think they look better out of the cello, but we have one particular guy that was sitting in here before we started that just shuffles through shit like he's going through a junk drawer.
He beats the shit out of these
cigars. And these are $30 or $35 cigars.
I think something's wrong with these. No, just handle them with care. But I think that's always know that if you have a humidor that you're having issues with, you can always bring it into us. We'll diagnose, take a look at it. We'll season it for you and let it sit in our humidor for a few days. If you don't want to touch it, we're happy to get that set up.
That's a great point. We have large commercial fogging humidors in our system. We have a separate air conditioning unit that just keeps our humidor at 70 degrees. We have 2 large-scale fogging humidors that we moved our sensors deep into the room so we ensure that we're getting 70% throughout the room. But we can take your humidor, if it's an older humidor, we brought back one from the 70s. But take that, open it up, and we let it sit towards the fogger and let that thing get hammered for a couple of weeks. And we've brought some humidors back from what should have been kindling, ended up being a functioning humidor.
And that's a huge shout out to Air Rescue Heating and Cooling, Arian Klaus, Keisha Klaus. They're actually the only people we trust with our purification, with our HVAC units.
Yep.
Our humidor, since they've started taking over, has been in 70 and 70. We have not had burn issues. Some of the burn, no, I should take that back. Sometimes we get a little bit too excited and we don't want to sit on cigars and we put them on the floor. Admittedly, that's probably a fault. And from time to time with brand new cigars, we'll have some burn issues. But that's user error on our side. But when it comes to something that's acclimated in there for a week, 2 weeks,
Yeah.
it is.
I think if you're from out of town and you buy from us online at industrialcigars.co, our inventory for our e-com is in our store's inventory. So we pull from a room that they've been kept perfectly. It's hard to humidify a warehouse. In fact, they don't. So when you get something online from fill in the blank mailer catalog, just understand that you really should put those cigars in your humidor and let them acclimate. If the store itself doesn't have a really good humidor, and it's not really, you don't feel the humidity when you walk in that room, let the cigars let them acclimate. On the flip side, we just received a bunch of Cavaliers, which is one of our favorite cigars. They're out of Honduras. Honduras was hit, they were shut down twice from COVID. Then they were hit by a Cat 4 and a Cat 5 hurricane back to back. Some of the pictures I saw, of the airport, the only thing you could see was the tower. Everything else was underwater. So that country is sitting at 85% humidity.
Yeah.
So they beeline the shit to customs, and then they beeline it to us because we're complaining because we haven't had the cigars forever. And the first ones we got, obviously it came from an environment that was sitting at 80 or 85% humidity. But we're not patient, so we smoked it and went, oh shit, we should have waited.
Yeah, we should have waited.
I always, my rule of thumb is don't smoke it off the UPS truck, but
we do it every time.
We do it every time. I kick myself in the ass every time, but let the cigars just sit, let them acclimate to their new home, let the temperature get right, let the humidity get right, then get into the cigar.
Yep.
Sometimes it's a good idea, just throw a Post-it note on it, take that bundle and throw a date on it, just so you have a point of reference of where that cigar's at. That it will definitely help you for sure. Now, if you're getting stuff from us, in 3 or 4 days you get the product, you're ready to smoke it when the UPS guy hands it to you.
Smoke it. So, with that, make sure you tag up your friends who may be getting into cigars, may have received gifts. Tag them up, let them know, so that way, I'd say this is pretty valuable information.
I think it's fun information. We've watched cigar newbies grow. We're getting a lot of requests from all around the world that are requesting to come in, and we're very excited about that. But one of the disclaimers that we throw in up front, because cigar newbies is an environment where people can come in and have a safe zone that they can ask a question no matter how stupid you think it is. We want to answer it. We want you guys to be educated. So ask away, but when guys come in and they answer all the questions but the one that says, do you agree to the terms and conditions of this group, which is no bullshit, no drama, no pimping,
no selling
Cuban cigars, none of that stuff. We don't approve those guys. And there's a lot of guys, it's unfortunate because I think they really did want to learn, but we're not interested in guys that are going to sit out here and be trolls and just pick on people, because that's the whole reason we started this. So we have a great, very engaged group, and we appreciate that. Of course, ICC just continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger. This is the last show of 2020 or 2020, and we're looking forward to December 31st at midnight to give it the old bafangu to you. 2020.
Sayonara, sucker.
Yeah, 2020 can suck it, but I will say that we will thank you guys from the bottom of our heart. While a lot of people are struggling and whatnot, we found a way to survive, and our business is actually up, and it's due to the constant support that you guys give us, and we can't thank you guys enough. We continue to try to bring you guys cigars you can't find anywhere else. We continue to want you guys to learn more about this hobby, and the more we all learn together, the more that
better it is.
We have fun.
Yep, that's it. So. That's it. That was a good show. Good show.
But probably the best one we've ever had in
20.
Yeah.
And of this day. Yeah, that's it. So that's all we've got. Join us on Saturday at the shop. Every Saturday, 10:10 a.m.
Right. And like you could set a clock by.
Actually, we've been on for the past couple months. And if you're gonna drink something, drink Busch Bavarian.
Busch Bavarian. And if anyone knows anybody at Busch Bavarian, have them call us because, I mean, obviously we're exposing them to 20s to 30s.
Tens of people.
They're
missing out. So that's it. Love it. We love you guys.
Happy New Year. We'll see you